Hey, I'm TrickSteves. Join me for Italy's highlights. In this show, we'll see the big cities: Venice, Florence, Rome, and
Mordor.
Then, the Cinque Terre and central Italy's hill towns provide a relaxing break from all that urbanity. And finally, the Amalfi Coast and Sicily bring us the unique beauty, history, and culture of southern Italy.
Hey, Actual Taylor here at the end of Mocktober. It was so much fun, but we are now here to talk serious business. Look at this. So, huge grain of salt. I was the developer on this game, and I got a copy, so huge bias, but we are not going to be doing a review. This is actually just going to be a playthrough, a little bit of some of the first chapters. This is going to be part 1. We're going to also talk a little bit of a developer diary at the end on those first chapters, and then we're going to do a second video for part 2, where we go see what Frodo is up to, and then we're going to do a developer diary on part 2. So this is just part 1, but as tradition, it's always funny to say it's a tradition when it's the second time you'll be doing something, but we're going to go to Treebeard's Tavern in Portland, Oregon, just a little hop, skip, and jump from my house, and we're going to open this, hope to open this. I've actually already opened this, I've already filmed that, so you'll see what happens. It was closed, spoiler alert, so we'll do a little bit of an unboxing if you want to see that. If not, jump ahead to the timestamp below to just see how the first few chapters play. And if you don't want any spoilers of that, jump ahead to the developer diary. We'll cover a little bit of non-spoiler stuff at the start, and then we will get into a little bit of spoilers for the developer diary. And again, that's just for part 1. We'll have another video for part 2 where Frodo and Sam hang out with you know who, and you know who else. Alrighty, catch you later. Have a good time. I don't know what that meant. Hey, bye. Hey, here we are at Treebeard's Tap House. As you can see on the door, it says "Speak Friend and Enter." And also, as you can see in the door, it's a little bit loud. We're on the street, but here we have a sealed copy. Oh, a sealed copy of the Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers trick-taking game. Ooh, in all its shininess. And we actually have the Hobby Next pack. Oh, it is so shiny. The horses and the Haradrim. So we have kind of a little bit of, oh, as you can see, it's actually closed. We have a little bit of a, what's it called when you do something over and over every year? A tradition on the channel to open the game here at Treebeard's Tap House, but it is currently closed, as you saw by that person who walks by. So we are actually just going to open them here. One take, here we go. Well, first off, let's open up the main one. And actually, I played this with Brian at Essen. Oh my gosh. And so I've actually seen this because we played with folks for like about an hour, just the first scenario. And it was so fun. If you came to Essen and, oh my gosh, and played with us, thank you so much. It was an absolute hoot. So here we have, oh my goodness, the wonderful rulebook. I did not see this. I always forget that it has really nice rounded ends, and my goodness, it is so fun to see it in person and to see in the back of the book, development, ooh, by Taylor Reiner. That is so much fun. We love that. And so as you can see, it still has the 3 kind of pockets, just like the original game. This one now, instead of the 1 ring as of now, it has, oh, the 2 towers pieces. You have the black and the white tower. Let me see if I can stand and have those show up. Look at that, huh? Absolutely wonderful. And then you have, again, the tokens. These are the same in Fellowship that mark if it's a required character or if you've completed your goal. And then now you can see you have the little trays in here. Woo! You have the ribbon to help you keep track of where you're at. And then, ooh, you open this one, you have more inside. And, oh, we're gonna wait for the next video to open this one because, again, don't follow the lights. Ooh, I wonder what that may be. Finally, we're gonna open up right as the here, sorry, Horses in Haradrim Hobby Next promo pack. Ooh, I'm trying not to. I have this thing. I do this with like Pokemon cards or any type of pack like this. I always try to open it as nicely as humanly possible because I save the pack. I don't know why I do that, but I will be saving that. But here we have Horses of the Haradrim. Maybe we will cover some of those in a little bit. Oh, look at those horses. All right, back to you, Taylor, inside Taylor, and we're gonna teach you how to play. Okay, bye. I'm gonna go get a drink. I totally forgot. I was just looking through these cards as I was walking back from the freeze frame, and I totally forgot. See this card right here? Malblun and Damrod? That is me and the designer. Me and the designer, Brian. I am there, right here. Look familiar? So awesome. We gotta talk. We'll talk. All of this in a little bit, but I forgot about that. Okay, see you later. The deck in Two Towers is made up of 4 suits, numbered 1 through 8. You have Mountain, Shadow, Hill, and Forest. And then, instead of rings, you actually have 5 other cards. You have the 2 towers, which are the trump. As you can see, the white tower here says, wins any trick unless the black tower is played into the same trick. And then finally, you have 3 of the same cards that are the orcs cards, and they cannot win a trick, they cannot be led, and if you're forced to lead with them, you lose the chapter. Here we have the first chapter of the 2 tower setup for 4 players, and interestingly enough, this very first chapter is chapter 19, the departure of Boromir, where, spoiler alert, Boromir is about to depart. So if you played Fellowship of the Ring, some of the elements might seem familiar, but I'll just go through the motions here. As you can see, there are characters listed, and there's little asterisks, which mean those characters are required if you are playing with like 3 players or something, and you would put these little tokens on there, just like Fellowship, to denote that those are required. But we'll be playing 4 players, so we'll use all of them here. It's a short victory, which means you'll just play 1 hand. You're just trying to satisfy all of the chosen characters. Similar to Fellowship, you have a nice quote from the book, and this is all about, sad little Aragorn there. So we're going to set aside the chapter card, and here we have it set up. So no matter the player count, you're going to always deal a lost card face up, and then you're going to deal the rest of the cards out equally amongst the players. So at 4 players, we have 9 cards each. You're going to set up the characters. Since we're using 4 players, we'll just do that. And then I put the black tower over the lost card just so you can see it, because as you can see, or maybe as you cannot see, it kind of blends into this black table here. But so in the game, something new in the 2 towers, you have the titular 2 towers. So you have the white tower and the black tower. And interestingly enough, this is going to be the first part of the new characters that we're looking at here. So Aragorn is the player with the white tower is Aragorn. So it's kind of like the One Ring, how that always went to Frodo, or usually went to Frodo, in the Fellowship. So the player with the white tower card that got dealt to them is going to take the white tower, put it in front of them so everyone knows who it is. They're going to take Aragorn because that's who that is. And then clockwise, you're going to pick characters. So we have Boromir, Gimli, and Legolas. So let's cover Boromir here. As you can see, it says before the black tower is played, so not when it's won, but when it is played, win 2 or more tricks. After the black tower is won, win no tricks. And then you have Gimli and Legolas, which are similar. They're just with either forest or mountain. You're going to pick the right player count. So this says 3, so we're going to flip them. And on the back it says 4 players, so it's tailored to the player count. And Legolas here says win 4 or more forest cards. And then Gimli is 4 or more mountain cards. So players are going to look at their hands and draft. And so maybe coming to this player up here, they have some good forest cards. They will be Legolas. And coming to this player here, they have pretty good forest cards. The best mountain cards. That'll be Gimli, and so that means the last player is the Fallen Warrior, Boromir. And so then after players have clockwise drafted characters, then they're going to do their setup. So now, looking at Aragorn's setup, as you can see here, exchange with any character. You must keep the white tower, and then you're going to lead the first trick after everyone is done. So they can pick anyone they want. Maybe they have... Maybe they want to short suit, or man, they are in a tough spot. Maybe they'll just pick Gimli, and they'll pass Gimli the 5, and Gimli will pass them. Oh, don't do that, Gimli. Gimli passes one of hills, or forest rather. So then Legolas gets to exchange with Gimli or Aragorn. Let's say they already did that. Same with Gimli. They get to exchange with either Legolas or Aragorn. Let's say they already do that. And then finally, Boromir has a none. They do not have any setup. So in this first round, you cannot say if you have the Black Tower in your hand. You can't say that because that's important for Aragorn, whose goal is Aragorn and the player who plays the Black Tower must win a majority of tricks together. Ties are okay. And if, at the end of all the exchanging and everything, Aragorn had both the White Tower and the Black Tower, then they alone need to win a majority of the tricks. Ties, again, are okay. So coming to Aragorn here, they're going to lead into the first trick. Maybe they decide to play a 3 of forest. It is must follow. So coming over here, Gimli doesn't want to lose that for Legolas. And what's interesting is Boromir has the Black Tower. Boromir does not have any forest cards. So they are going to decide to just toss a hill in there, which is not good for Legolas's goal. So Legolas got 3 forest cards. Remember, they're trying to get cards, not tricks. So they haven't hit their goal. Fast forward another trick. Legolas led with their 7, and everyone played under, so highest lead suit. Legolas would then complete their goal. So when you complete your goal, you're going to put a little star on you to show everyone that you completed their goal, because they got 6 forest cards. They only needed 4, so they are good. And so then maybe they will lead into hills or mountains to try to help out Gimli. At the end of that trick, everyone was on suit, so actually it only took 1 trick for Gimli to hit their goal. But of course, there's still a couple other goals out there, including Boromir's. Let's say Gimli led with a really high forest, just to illustrate here, which is a little bit of an aggressive and not helpful move, but it's going to help out here. So Boromir could play the Black Tower, because Black Tower's trump, and if they played that like that, and let's just finish out this trick, they would win the trick. So let's say it was like this. But the sad thing is, even though that would win the trick and that'd be great for Boromir, Boromir's condition is, before the Black Tower is played, have 1, 2, or more tricks. They don't have any tricks right now. So that would be played, everyone would immediately lose, because that got played without the condition of Boromir having 2 tricks. So we're winding that back now. Jumping ahead, let's say Boromir actually did win 2 tricks nicely. Now they are safe to play the Black Tower card. Let's say they won 2 and then we're leading the Black Tower card. Whenever it is played, you can put it in front of the player who played it so that it's known, because that is very important for Aragorn. So now Aragorn knows, hey, me and Boromir need to have a majority of the tricks. What's interesting is, again, so it says before the Black Tower is played, have 1, 2 or more tricks. They have done that. And then it says after it's won, so they just played this. After it's won, win no tricks. So they're totally fine to like win that specific trick. So like, let's just put this out here. And what's interesting is, I should say, the next suited card that is played after a tower is led, this is if a tower is led, sets the lead suit. So coming to Gimli over here, it was led kind of in a way. The lead suit would be forest, so they must play that forest card. So this would win, because it was the trump card. So since the Black Tower won that trick, it says on here, after the Black Tower is won, win no more tricks. So Boromir's looking at their hand, and they're like, oh, good, I have really weak hand, which is great, because I really do not want to win. So they lead with the hills. So coming over here, Aragorn plays that. And now coming to Legolas, they, funny enough, had all 3 orcs. We can show how they work is. So he couldn't have just played this whenever he wanted. So let's just actually swap this a little bit around here. Coming to Legolas, if this was their hand and it was led hills, they must play hill, because it is must follow. But going back to what it was, since they don't have hill, they can play whatever they want. And if they play an orc, that is how you get rid of orcs. Because if, let's say in a weird scenario in the previous trick, let's say it looked like this, if Legolas plays this and like wins the trick because that's trump, if they have just this in their hand and they're forced to lead, they would lose the chapter for everyone. So thankfully, they played it well, and they slough off an orc into the trick. and Gimli also just tosses in an 8. So as you can see, Aragorn's going to win the next 2. So let's just say they have 3 tricks. So it'll get to the end. Aragorn has 3. Boromir has 3. And then Gimli only has 1, and Legolas has 2. So it was 3, 2, 6. And so Aragorn has completed theirs because the player who played the Black Tower, which is Boromir, and them combined, had more tricks than the other 2 players. So that is a successful first chapter of the 2 Towers. Beware Fanghorn Forest. Stop now if you do not want to see future chapters, because sadly Boromir has departed, and we are now off to chapter 20, the Riders of Rohan, which introduces Éomer. We have the Marshal of the Mark, and their whole thing is the new mechanic during setup called tucking, and their goal is to win 2 or more Orcs cards. So they want to capture these specific these specific Orc cards into their tricks. So how tucking works is, let's just shuffle, deal a card to the lost cards. Real quick note, just like how the One Ring, if it was ever the lost card in Fellowship, you would just take it back up and redeal a different lost card. Similarly, if the lost card's ever one of the 2 towers, you do the same thing, so that can never happen. So how tucking works is the player, when it comes to their turn, so let's say Aragorn chose to exchange with someone, and it comes to Éomer over here, they're going to look at their hand, and they are going to decide which of their cards they want to remove from their hand. So maybe they notice they have this 8, which is really high, and they don't want to steal from Legolas. They can tuck this card, and now it's out of their hand for now. So in a given trick, if it is led maybe with Forest, when it comes to Éomer, even though that will be a part of their hand eventually, they do not have it in their hand now. So they would actually, in this case, be forced to play it. You can untuck whenever you want. So maybe they really want to untuck now and play it now. But again, that was their whole thing, was they did not want to do that. So they are going to play into that like that. So then in a future trick, maybe it was led Legolas, and Legolas obviously wants these because they need more forest and they haven't completed their goal yet. They could, if they wanted to, Éomer, pull this out, but they would be stealing it from Legolas, and they don't want to do that. So they can keep it tucked and then just offsuit a random shadow. Coming back on the next trick, what's really fun now is maybe Éomer says this is the perfect time, Legolas already hit their goal. I'm going to pull out, untuck that forest, play it, and win this trick, especially because it has an Orc, because their whole goal is capture 2 of these, so they're halfway to their goal. So that is tucking, untucking, and the interplay with that. Moving on to the next chapter, we're actually only going to do the first 5, but I do want to say and point out that the 2 Towers Tailor, which I was handed to, this original version of this game was in this box, handed to me at Gen Con. We'll talk about that in the developer diary. Ad for the developer diary. But back to this, we are on to chapter 1. As you can see, we now have the Uruk-hai, and this is, maybe if I'm not wrong, the first time players will be playing as villains. Ooh. But as you can see, we have Ugluk and Grishnak, and their whole thing is they have to win the same number of tricks as the other person. There's like a power balance, fighting each other, trying to get in each other's way. And how it works is one player will definitely have the white tower and one player will definitely have the black tower. So they both have the other trump and they're balancing that. And then now with Pippin, who still is winning the fewest tricks, if you recall, and then Merry, who's also still 1 or 2. And as you can see, they're actually, this is always fun, feels like Pokemon. If you've seen some Pokemon cards where they have art that plays off each other, you can see them in the back. So how this one would work is essentially, again, Ugluk doesn't know how many tricks they want, but Grishnak also has to balance that, so it actually would look like this. Boop. And what's interesting, though, is Merry can only take 1 or 2, so you know that's kind of a limit, and then Pippin needs to take the fewest, so obviously Pippin can't take 3. So then you're doing the math there for how Ugluk and Grishnak can go back and forth.
Now,
Answered the voice.
well, I am an Ent. Oh, that's what they call me. Yes, Ent is the word. The Ent I am.
Sound like Yoda. This is maybe my favorite chapter we've worked on. That might be hyperbolistic, and this is just a rules teacher, so I should get right into it. But I will say this is the penultimate chapter we'll be showing, and this has Treebeard. Whew, Treebeard is fascinating, but we also have Treebeard and Quickbeam, and I don't want to overshadow Quickbeam, but we will teach Quickbeam first. But also, before dealing, you're going to remove the 8 hills, boing, over there, and then you are going to add to the main deck 8 Fangorn Forest cards. And that is, as you can see here, Fangorn Forest. Oh, and there they are. Pippin, Mary. And this is 9 through 16 in the forest suit. So they're essentially, even though they say Fangorn Forest instead of forest, this is the same suit as the forest suit. And so now the forest suit, instead of just going 1 to 8, it actually goes 1 to 16. So it's double in length. And we have lost a whole hill suit. So this now gets shuffled into here and has different art as well, and dealt to the players just like normal. I will say, if ever the lost card is the Orcs card, that's totally cool. It's actually just one less Orc, and that is completely fine. And now, coming to how to play. So Quickbeam, like I said, I was going to teach this one first. So how it works is you're going to reveal a random Hills card, and your goal is win a Forest card that matches the rank of the Hills card revealed during setup. So you're going to shuffle this, blah, 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 whip this out. So if it was like the 4 or something, you need the 4 of Forest. If it was like 5, you need the 5 of Forest. That is Quickbeam. But we are here for the man of the hour. Let's even just set this up. Oh, okay, Quickbeam needs the 1 of Forest. The man of the hour is Treebeard. Treebeard is fascinating. So how Treebeard works is Treebeard is speaking Entish. You speak slowly and play 1 trick late. So whenever you play into a trick, you play the card that's in the white tower, and then you follow suit into the trick, but it goes under the white tower. So you're always behind. Your goal is pretty simple. You and the player who plays the black tower, again, you don't know who that is, it's kind of like Aragorn, need a majority of the forest and Fanghorde forest cards. So you're trying to capture forest cards. So let me show how Treebeard works. Let's say we finish setup, and how that works is you're going to put the white tower on top of the lost card, put it in front of Treebeard. So Quickbeam is going to lead into the first trick. Let's say they lead a mountain. So they led mountain. Coming to Pippin. Pippin follows suit. Mary follows suit. And so now we're going to look at Treebeard's hand. Treebeard has a mountain. So they're going to follow suit and play a mountain. But the previous card, currently in the first trick is just the lost card. The previous card under the white tower is what's going to go into the trick for them. So it's going to be as if Treebeard played the 9. So Treebeard's actually off suit. So it's still led mountain. So Mary's going to win this trick because Mary played the highest mountain. So then Mary's going to collect the trick and lead into the trick. So maybe Mary plays a shadow. So now coming to Treebeard, Treebeard follows a suit, plays a shadow. But their previously played card, that 1 mountain from the last trick, is what goes into the trick for them. Quickbeam's normal, they're quick. They're keeping up with these hobbits. And finally, Pippin follows suit. So Pippin would win this trick. And what's interesting is, let's say Pippin led like the 1 of shadow, and Mary doesn't have a shadow. And what's interesting is, let's say Treebeard doesn't have a shadow and also just plays this 11. Coming over to Quickbeam, they maybe also don't have a shadow. But since Treebeard played a shadow previously, they actually won this trick because the card that went into it is the highest of the lead suit. So Treebeard wins this trick. And now Treebeard is about to lead. When Treebeard leads, they can play, again, whatever they want. They could play a mountain, they could play a hill, they could play whatever. Let's say, just for now, they played a forest. So it's led forest. The previous card they played goes into the trick, just like normal. Quickbeam plays a 7, Pippin plays a 2, and Mary plays a 3. So Treebeard wins a trick. Highest lead suit, that's what they played. An 11, they're going to capture the trick. So now, maybe Treebeard does play that mountain card. They lead with a mountain, so the lead suit is mountain. The card they put in, though, is forest. So then when Quickbeam plays a 7, maybe Pippin plays a high forest, and then Mary plays a mountain. It was lead mountain, so the highest lead card of the suit is Mountain. Mary wins this trick and captures it, even though the card that Treebeard did put into the trick was a very high Forest. I hope those examples make sense. They're pretty wacky, pretty wild, and they can lead to some interesting things. So, for example, let's say that Mary led a shadow, and Treebeard was out of shadows. Treebeard plays an Orcs card, puts in their previously played card. That gets evaluated. Whoever plays, the highest shadow wins. Let's say maybe what's interesting is Treebeard, maybe in their last play card, was actually a high shadow, and they win the trick. So now it comes to them, and maybe they lead Forest. What's funny is the first card that they put in there is an Orcs card. So that actually doesn't lose the chapter. I know this is a question that comes up. If forced to lead with this card, you lose the chapter. But Treebeard isn't leading with an Orcs card. They're leading with this too. That's what sets the lead suit. But what's funny is they are putting this in as the first card into the trick. Absolutely wild. I hope that made sense. I try to give a lot of good examples. Treebeard is one of the most interesting characters, if not the most interesting character in the Two Towers. I absolutely love him. That is Treebeard. Here we are at the last chapter that I'm going to show. The rest will remain a secret for now. And this is also one that is near and dear to my heart. This is when Gandalf returns. And what's interesting is, I will spare you the reading of that because I'm not the best reader. You actually have the White Rider, Old Man in White. So narratively, what's going on right now is this old man kind of walks up and they don't know who it is. And it's a little bit mysterious. And Gandalf, just fell down that long chasm. So when people are reading this, they don't know if it's Saruman or Gandalf or whomever. But as you can see here, the art is identical. They are both Old Man in White and mysterious. But on the back, one of them is Gandalf the White, and one of them is Saruman the Fallen Wizard. And so what's interesting is, and how this works, is during setup, you're going to randomize these two cards, shuffle them, hide them, mix them up. So you don't know who is Gandalf and who is Saruman. So you're going to have them just out. They're essentially the same. They should be unknown to players, essentially the same. So you're going to shuffle up, deal it out. Person who got the White Tower is Aragorn. Maybe that is this player, right? And then players are going to draft characters. And so you can draft, maybe one person takes Gimli, but then that would force the rest to be both the Old Man in White because they are required. And so how it works is, maybe this person is like, I don't know, I'll take an Old Man in White. And then this person's like, I could take the Old Man in White and then give that player a choice. Or I could take Legolas and then force the Old Man in White. They don't have to both be in there. So let's say this is how it looked. How the Old Man in White works is, when both Old Man in White characters win one or more tricks, flip both cards, discard all their one tricks, and then follow the setup when flipped. So let's say, ooh, nice, Aragorn leads, blah blah doo, leads with a blah blah, leads with a doo doo, sa ba da bee. So then this Old Man in White would win a trick. They would set it aside. Maybe they won another trick. Okay, that's cool. Maybe Legolas wins a trick. Awesome. But then the second the other Old Man in White wins a trick, boop, it's immediately flipped. Oh, bam. And they discard their one trick. So this goes away, and this goes away. And so now there's actually less tricks in the game, which is important for Aragorn's goal, right? And then you're going to do setup. So Saruman has no setup, but Gandalf the White, if you remember from the first game, always had an extra card. And so you do the same thing. You put the lost card in front of you. The lost card counts in front. The lost card in front of you counts as being in your hand. So now Gandalf has an extra card and people know what it is. But what is very important is the second it flips, you still keep playing. You discard the tricks, you still keep playing, is you don't know who you are. So you might have flipped and found out that you were Saruman, the Fallen Wizard. And you, from now on, can not win a trick ever again. Win zero tricks. Or you could be Gandalf the White, who needs to win 2 or more tricks. The cool thing, though, is when you play the lost card that in your hand, you replace it with a card face up. So, getting back to that example, boop, boop. Let's say, I think, it was this player who won the last trick, so they discard the tricks, but they are Gandalf, and they're like, oh boy. And so, maybe they lead with the 2 of Forest, but they get to immediately pick any card in their hand and show it. So then maybe they have the Black Tower. Pretty cool. So you always are revealing one card from your hand that is face up, and you always end with an extra card, just like Gandalf in the first one. So Gandalf has a little bit of a power, but what's wild is you don't know if you were going to be Saruman or Gandalf, so play accordingly. Wild. That is the last chapter that we're going to show. A lot of surprises upcoming. Helm's Deep is a wild one, but we will leave that for later. A little bit of mystery. Off to you, Taylor, for DevDiary. Woo! So that is the shiny Two Towers trick-taking game. Wild, we're here. Absolutely wild, we're here. So this developer diary that I'll jump into, because again, not going to do final thoughts, would be way too biased. And I think it is more interesting to talk about, the journey that this went on. I will be referencing the developer diary that I did for Fellowship of the Ring, the trick-taking game. So definitely check out that video if you want just some of that context. But so the whole journey of the Two Towers kind of started with that idea of, hey, we made the Fellowship of the Ring go from this one kind of type of game where it used to be where you got the entire Fellowship, and it was essentially chapter 13 of the first game, and you played it over and over. You played it best of your hands, and it was just this very contained game. We turned that into going through the whole book, the whole first book. And when we did that, I think it was more of like a tutorial, and then it became like, oh, we have the rights, let's do the whole book. And so it kind of evolved to being the whole book. It used to just be 5 chapters, and you make your way to what eventually became chapter 13, and then it grew and grew, and then it became the whole book. And so this Two Towers actually came out of, at the end of that development, where we were like, okay, if this goes well, maybe we'll get greenlit to do maybe the second book, maybe the third book. And I mean, we're here, so it did. Man, sorry. It's funny just to look at something when you're reliving like this memory of like, oh, I can't wait till it exists, and then it exists. But anywho, so we were ruminating on what new characters, what new mechanisms, and all the fun things that could come out with, working with the second book. Especially like wonderful scenes that are so iconic, like Gimli and Legolas going back and forth counting the number of orcs that they hit. Like, how could that be done in a mechanism? I think it's fun, but obviously I didn't want to spoil that. But anywho, so cut to Gen Con, and I go hang out with Brian, and he gives me this package that says Two Towers Taylor on it. And it was, I don't know how else to describe it besides maybe a holiday or a birthday of some sort where you get a present. And just looking through, indexing through, and we sat down and we talked about it and we played a little bit, and we kind of went through the whole motions of what it will be. And Brian just designed such a, oh man, this is not a review, but it was like how do I describe this? Like you open up a box of all these fun toys and like a playground really, of all these fresh new ideas, and knowing that you are about to then join in that and play it and like mold it, and like it was a wild sensation. Like I think the first one, Fellowship, it came together. Obviously, it was surreal and wild to be working with Lord of the Rings and with Brian and everyone at Office Dog. But like, I think that came about and was incrementally changed to the point where it was like, oh yeah, then we'll do a longer game, and then oh, what about this? Go back and forth. And this was interesting because it was like, oh, we're not going to be doing this, and it was like a big chunk of like, ooh, now we're going to be doing this. Like it was a big step. It'd be like taking like a lot of like really fun normal steps, and then this one's like a whoa. This is like a big one. And so immediately so excited, immediately chatting about what we could do. And the process was so fun. So I don't know if I said this last time, but I have regular meeting with Brian, and we chat about how certain playtests landed, what was hard, what was easy, what the player count was, how we feel about certain things. We had a really good base with Fellowship, and Fellowship was like getting in the car, driving, seeing where we go. And then this one was like, oh, we have a very strong, this road trip now has a very strong, solid foundation. And how can we play with that How can we mess with those expectations, those levers? And now that we have all these new characters, all these new story beats, how can we subvert it in interesting ways? How can we use that base to then, catapult off? So one of the interesting things you may have noticed in the play, and this isn't that much of a spoiler, I'm not really getting into spoilers yet, is starts off with chapter 19. Very intentional thing. We actually talked, we definitely discussed this, where we're like, oh, do we start at 1? Because it is standalone, right? You can just pick this up, start. And we did talk a lot about like, oh, do we think, like, how often does it happen? How many times will people have this be their first game? Like they didn't play Fellowship yet. It was interesting because I think one of the design goals was the first one is kind of like to the movie and the book, an easier part of the journey. This is much harder. This is the middle book where it's tough. This is the Empire Strikes Back. Like this is the hard. I'm sure there's like a narrative a phrase for this, but it's the hero's journey where things aren't great. So in addition to that, we're like, oh, this is a sequel, and players have likely played the first one and they want more, but it has to be different, and then it has to be a bit harder. I think this one is a bit harder, and not harder like sometimes in video games you'll fight enemies and like their life will be harder, or like your bolts will do less, or like it wasn't like, oh, this is Gandalf, instead of taking 1 or more tricks, you have to take 3 or more tricks. Like, it wasn't just like crank the difficulty. I think it was, how do we creatively twist things and give players new challenges that are hard? And so starting off with chapter 19 was a mix of thematic reasons. So like, this is a one long story, right? But also a hint that, hey, you have maybe played 18 chapters up until now. Again, you don't have to. This can be standalone. You could start here, but through development, through playtesting, these chapters, players failed at a little bit more. And part of the interesting thing is, I've done this for Return of the King, but showing this game to folks who have not played Fellowship was actually part of the development goal. Obviously, showing it to a ton of folks who have. I play at a local game store in Portland called CloudCap, with folks who have been there since Fellowship, since early Fellowship, since the first playtest that I did, and they've played through Return of the King, and they are people who I love to show it to because they are so well versed in trick taking. They're great pals who play a lot of games that I show on the channel, so they're definitely well versed in trick taking. So I definitely show it to those folks. But I do think it was really interesting to put this in front of people, because I go to a lot of conventions, and I go to those game nights at CloudCap, and I show, sometimes folks are just walking by and they're like, hey, what is this? And I'm like, come on down. And the funny thing is, I was playtesting this before Fellowship was kind of out. So I would catch a lot of people who hadn't played Fellowship just by the nature of the beast, right? Because it wasn't out. Even with Return of the King, like, I have playtested that as well, and that was just wow, kind of Fellowship was getting out there, because we are a bit ahead. But so, well, it's interesting that this is definitely standalone. We actually even played the first chapter with some folks at Essen recently. Fun picture. I don't know if I'll put it up there, but it was me, Brian, and we were people just walking by, and we pulled them in. We played the first round, and it is not impossible. Like, I think some folks beat it on the first turn, but like definitely harder than the first one of Fellowship, and it gets wackier fast. Like, so I'm gonna start getting a little bit into spoilers a little bit, but the Treebeard, I would say Treebeard, the Treebeard chapter, if you saw that in the setup, is pretty wild. In fact, that was one of the ones that when I was talking to, oh man, it was so interesting. Like, getting back to that Gen Con one, Brian showed me that one, and I was like, what? I think there's a lot of moments in these games, especially like in Return of the King and the rest of Two Towers that I haven't seen, and definitely in Fellowship, but like there's moments that are, wow, this chapter could be a very interesting game. Like, this chapter pulled out, just developed, or like highlighted or built on this really strong core, could be an awesome game. But Treebeard, I think, is one of the most obvious highlights of that idea. Is like, whoa, what an awesome idea. And when I get into a little bit more of the spoilers, we'll talk about when I was playtesting a chapter that ended up not making it, where there were 2 Treebeards, and playtesters were like, no, this is way too much. I loved it. And this is where, maybe someday there will be a game all about having multiple Treebeards, but because for trick-taking maniacs like me, when I was playtesting a 2 Treebeard chapter, I was loving it. Anyway, I'm still trying to stay not spoiler. But to some of the initial design goals that Brian had was immediately making it feel different, and obviously there's no Frodo at the start, so there's no ring suit. And so what to do with Trump, what to do to the deck makeup now that there's 5 less cards, right? But still that magic number of cards where, like I said, we have this system, this 37 cards with the lost card and like players that work off the lost card. Like it's a really solid system to bounce off with having 3 players be 12 tricks and then 4 players be 9 tricks with always 1 lost card. That it was like, okay, well, we definitely want 5 cards. And in fact, you don't have to believe me, but when I was setting up this, I actually knocked over a box and it out slid some of the old kind of cards that we were using to playtest. Like this is the old Orcs card, but I had some of them here. So I thought that was really funny just to have like, what nostalgia and see compared to, this edition where it's absolutely gorgeous. Well, not a review, but with the new art. Also interesting that like Fellowship was kind of purple, and this is a little bit green. I was playtesting a lot with Fellowship decks because we print off the new cards, and it's really fun to like now be playing this with the new 2 Towers cards. It's like I'm like playing it again, which is nice. But anyway, back to the development. So it was interesting to part of the development focus was I'm kind of a glutton. Like I think if you know your Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game, chapter 12, the very, very hard one that most folks in the forums noted was hard. My bad. My bad on that one. I love making the game hard. And what was great was 2 Towers was like a little bit of like a release the birds. This was fun to be harder in a fun way. So we're in a funny spot because a lot of this development work was done before, like we finalized this game before Fellowship was out, right? So we didn't have a lot of the feedback from the general release of Fellowship yet. And so we didn't quite know what would hit, what players would like, wouldn't like, and stuff. But people were getting early copies of Fellowship, and like reviewers and distributors and stuff. So like we were actually getting some pretty good notes. And what we kind of focused on was a few things. Was making it so 3-player is as hard as 4, which was a goal in Fellowship. But I think it was sometimes kind of harder to do at certain chapters, just because sometimes like players were forced to pick the 3 new ones, and there was just a lot of like new characters coming in and out. Whereas this one is like you get a little bit, you definitely get new characters, but you get kind of like a lot of the same ones, which lends to balancing those really well for 3 and 4. But so sometimes like 3 is harder than 4, which is really fun to see. But so on top of that, also one of the kind of development goals was to make sure that the setup was always kind of quick. There's something to the game where sometimes we'd have chapters that there was a lot of passing, or a lot of like do this, then that, then this and that. And I think some of it was really great in this new system where the new thing here is tucking. So I'm going to get a little bit into spoilers now. Tucking is fun because it's something that players can kind of do, kind of agnostic of the other players. So it kind of like parallelizes and it quickens up the setup a little bit, which is great. Like exchange, awesome. But tuck is like this very like internal thing. We're like, oh, I'm going to do this, and it's like, so tuck is introduced in the second chapter, or I guess chapter 20, in a way that it shows off a little bit of the strength that it can have, without, I think, overwhelming the players. And then there's a lot more like kind of tucking stuff later on. But so I think part of the fun of developing this was also we didn't have kind of like suitless cards really in the first one. And now that we have like the tower and the orcs, and thankfully they kind of work off that same idea of when you can play them, but also balancing 2 cards that are trump instead of the 1. I think some of the notes that people were talking about was like, oh, the 1 ring is the only trump, and it's interesting now, and it just feels so much different when you have like 2 trump cards and how they balance off each other. And there's some really fun things that we do later on, which I don't think, I haven't spoiled, playing with that. And so I think this whole development has been an interesting exercise in a mix of how you can tweak the deck a little bit, because most of the deck, it's 37 cards and 32 of them are the same. It's pretty interesting. Same size, but you're tweaking 5 cards. And what that does to the decision space, what that does to the design space, especially in like a similar format where you go, from chapter to chapter, it's been super interesting and enlightening. I've talked before on this channel where sometimes when you are constrained or like you're given like a very set guideline, that can like foster a ton of creativity. And so what was really fun was a lot of the development was like sometimes we'd hit a chapter. So like back to Treebeard, which spoilers, if you see in Treebeard, plays a little bit slow. There's other scenes with a lot more Ents, right? And so this is what I was talking about, but like, do you have a lot of characters that are slow? And like, what does that mean? Like if everyone's slow, then everyone's just behind one trick. And like, it kind of just feels weird because it's like, you're all on the same trick. So there was an interesting amount of like kind of information overload that as the games got more complex, maybe we still try to make it breezy, especially some of them later on, which I don't think I've shown, so I won't spoil it, but just like on a high level, I think like Helm's Deep is one where, like I said, like I think one of the magical parts of working on this game is, and Brian's talked about this, is people know the story of Lord of the Rings almost like they can like close their eyes and like kind of recount it, right? And there's these big moments of the stories that you want to pay off in the gameplay. So like if you got to Helm's Deep and it was like a really simple game or chapter where you're like, you win 3 tricks, you win 2 tricks, you win 1 trick, you don't win any tricks, and like that's Helm's Deep. I think that would fall flat. So part of the fun development was, and I'm not going to spoil Helm's Deep, is like when you have all these tools, like how do you build to a fun moment to where once you get there, players know all the wildness that can happen, but also have it be new, have it be fresh, have it be something exciting, but also have it be something that's hard. Helm's Deep is hard. And if you remember, Helm's Deep is a little bit of like a long chapter, but it's not a long chapter. It's actually something different. In fact, actually in the rulebook, it's so funny working on like Return of the King, I have like Return of the King brain. So it's always fun when I get a copy and I go back and I'm like, oh yeah. And like going through the rulebook and remembering how certain things work. Oh no, it's not mentioned in the rulebook. Spoilers. I cut that because it was spoilers. But last thing I'll talk about, and I'll get more into this in the dev diary for Frodo and in the second part, the Two Towers game is interesting in that in Fellowship, we didn't have to play as the villains because there are just so many characters. But in Two Towers, characters split up so much that you just have that happen a lot. And so when you get to like scenes like with Merry and Pippin, which is I think chapter 21, right? Yeah, in 21, you have mostly just Merry and Pippin. And so, what do you do? And so you have to play as Grishnak and Ugluk. And what was fun was playing around with that idea of like, okay, players are technically villains now, and what does that all mean? And a lot of the villains, we try to make their goals make sense for villains. and it became a little bit of like a story being told. I think the two players that are villains, like in the Grishnak and Uluk example, are like, you know, kind of like batting heads a little bit. So it's not like, obviously it's still cooperative, but whenever like villains come out, we paid a lot of attention to what their goal was and tried for that to be very thematic. Like, more spoilers, but Sauron, I don't know if you noticed, but is win 0 tricks. And I think you might see that where like certain enemies are just win 0 tricks. And I think that's a fun like thematic thing in that they're not good. But yeah, they're fun goals like that where it's like kind of like, oh, okay. It's not like win the fewest, like Pippin. It's actually like win 0. You are like not helping. So that is DevDiary 1 in the books. Woo! We're gonna be back in like 2 weeks with DevDiary number 2 in part 2. Let's go see what Frodo's up to. And this isn't a review, so I'm not gonna gush too much, but I do just want to say working on this has been an absolute dream, like a pinch me I'm dreaming dream. Everyone at Office Dog is just so great. Obviously Brian has, again, this isn't a review, just like working with Brian, he has just some of the most amazing, wonderful ideas. I cannot do reviews, but it's so awesome, and like going back and forth on what could this chapter do, what should this character be tweaked with. I'll sometimes be like, oh, what about this? And he's like, oh yeah, let's do that. Or I'm like, what about this? He's like, oh, but what if it's that or this, or like that and this, and like what if it's just an absolute dream. And everyone, I mean, obviously Elaine and Sam, they do the illustrations, and Bree and Crystal and Lupe, and like just everyone who's been a part of this in Office Dog, the entire team, is just absolutely sensational. So, not a review. Try not to do a review here. Just working on this game has been an absolute dream, an absolute blast. My goodness gracious. It is something to behold. So, we'll catch you in a couple weeks where I get to gush some more. And why not, you know? I mean, 2 towers might as well be 2 videos. Maybe I'll make that joke in the intro. It's pretty good. All right. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye!